I am super excited to welcome you to the press conference for Captain America Civil War. Right now, I'm going to welcome out the folks who are going to be speaking to you today. It is a pleasure to welcome President of Marvel Studios and producer of Captain America Civil War, Kevin Feige. Also, Emily VanCamp is up next. Come on up. Also, Mr. Cheadle. Iron Man himself. It's all about Team Iron Man right now. Mr. Robert Downey Jr. But I know this guy can do it, Mr. Bettany. And then last but certainly not least, the director, Anthony Russo. Hi everybody, so Civil War, am I right?
You're right.
Yes!
You got me right.
Robert, this is happening.
Thank you. I'll enter my body any minute now.
Hopefully this will get you in there. Now, I feel like over the course of these films, we've seen like the layers of Tony Stark peeled back to reveal like a really emotional center.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's the case, and how does that continue in Civil War?
I'm still reeling from the fact that Paul Bettany was Jarvis and now he's Vision. I mean, what if you just stop, you go, so here's what's going on with Tony, you go, wait a minute, did he make the guy? Look at him. Yeah. Proud of you. As far as the emo arc of Tony over these bunch of years, I think anyone who sticks around for more than a minute and joins the party here, it's all about, and particularly as I'm sure either Russo would attest, it's all about, that's where I think Marvel has really done its smart moves, you know, is making sure that there's a real emotional impact of what's going on. And I am no exception.
No exception, truly. Now, even though Civil War has this unbelievable emotional pull, I wanted to ask you if you thought that there were certain technological advances that allowed for this movie to happen in the extraordinary way that it does.
Wow. Well, look, there's a man sitting next to us that used to be Jarvis, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, now, do you mean within the world, or you mean outside in terms of filmmaking?
Well, I mean, my actual intention was for, like, in the effects world, like on the technical side of the film. However, if you think there's something interesting to talk about within the world, that too.
Oh, no, I could talk to, look, every movie, like, I think part of the popularity of big special effects driven movies these days is the fact that the technology has reached such an incredibly high level. And every movie, every couple of years it changes. And this movie, you know, you sort of reap the benefits and you sort of push forward on every film. I mean, this movie has a very remarkable sequence, I think, where Robert Downey Jr. plays a 20-year-old man, which is pretty incredible. He plays someone who's around the age he was when we all first saw him on the screen. So it's like it's
nostalgic.
Yeah, it's a pretty
very expensive nostalgia. I'm told.
It was very. Look, it took us months and months of work on that shot to make it work. It's very complicated taking the human face and changing the human face in a way that looks realistic. And in fact, it was the last shot we completed in the movie. Just dropped into the movie maybe 5 days ago.
On Robert's birthday.
Look at that! Look at that!
Synchronicity abounds.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
happy late birthday, eternal youth for you.
Thank you.
All right.
That's what these 3 tables are for, any late presents. I'm watching you.
What do you get the man that has everything, guys? Come on.
More stuff.
Stupid question.
I've got a bunch of questions too. Let me know when you're done.
Please, be my guest, sir.
Oh what was it like just hanging from a wire for 6 or 8 days? I remember seeing there was an entire week where I just saw you suspended about 40 feet in the air.
Well, I really enjoy wire work. You know, I like the freedom of it. I dream of flying, but you have to balance that out with being suspended by your testicles. It's really a double-edged sword. Pardon the...
Anthony, your brother said right before we walked out, he said, "Please watch your language."
I haven't said anything. Oh, I said testicles.
That wire work that you're referring to was also done in the Georgia sun in the summer, which was also pretty remarkable.
It's extraordinary. You know, we all got out there, and you're there in the airport, and you're thinking, how are they going to realize this epic battle visually? And you look at everybody, and look around, and everybody's in their costume, and they look like superheroes and movie stars. And then about 5 minutes later, in 105 degrees, they look a lot less like movie stars, a lot less like superheroes.
And that's where the visual effect work comes in.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Well, it makes you a lot less glowy,
Yeah.
let's say. Kevin, do you find yourself visiting set and getting completely jealous of all of the magical things these folks have to go through and the heat and the conditions?
I don't know if I'm jealous of the heat necessarily, but I'm in awe always. I'm in awe when they're in costume. I'm in awe when they're out of costume. And I've said it before, and it's only getting more and more so as cast members keep joining. There's never been an ensemble like this in cinematic history. It's really astounding. We break it up into 2 panels today because everyone is a headline, and and getting them in a room together is pretty awe-inspiring.
It's one of the things I think that's exciting for audiences too, is to see all these new people joining what I see as a family a lot of the time. I feel like I'm a member. I know, yes, that's a good So I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to get to your questions. So out there, stop being polite and start looking for the
This
wait.
is like
keep being polite.
aboard an alien vessel.
I know
right
it
now.
is.
Those 6 lights up.
Right.
Yeah, right? Thank you for making me feel less weird about not being able to see. We have our first question right there.
Hi, I'm Bettany with Cinemovie. So I wanted to know, Paul, you're new to the outfit. Do you guys compare who's got it worse on the set? Especially the new guys? You guys compare notes?
You know, I think it's a photo finish, but I think that maybe Chadwick, you know, with the whole not being able to breathe business is.
You can't tell with Paul because he's British. It's harder to know exactly how excruciating. We should all be a bit more like Paul. Last question.
I'm stealing that.
All right, we've got over there.
All right, Louis Lecco with Nuka Fridge. Could you guys talk a little bit about bringing Spider-Man into the mix? I mean, it was so flawlessly done. Didn't feel forced at all. It was just like one of the amazing aspects of the film. Can you guys talk about that?
Sure.
Look, it was very important to all of us, all the filmmakers, the folks at Marvel, Kevin, my brother, myself, the writers. Look, we knew we wanted to tell a really complicated story between Captain America and Iron Man in this movie. A story that went to very difficult, dark places. We're big fans of balance in storytelling. We like really well-rounded movies, like movies that make us laugh and cry. So for us, it became very important to find a way to change the dynamics and modulate the tone in the movie by bringing in characters that didn't have the same emotional investment that all the Avengers had, the events that were unfolding, because they're very serious events, complicated events. So to bring in characters like Spider-Man, like Ant-Man into the movie who don't have that baggage, it gave us an opportunity as storytellers to sort of bring new colors into the film at a deep place in the movie, lighter colors, more whimsical colors, and I think it just helped balance that big fight out that they all have with one another at the airport in a really nice way. We tried to find very organic ways that those characters found their ways into the movie, both of those characters, and it was just, you know, I mean, and Kevin can elaborate more on this. He was very critically central to making it happen. I don't know that a lot of people could have pulled off getting Spider-Man in this movie except for Kevin Feige. So.
I think it was a good answer, right?
I want Kevin to walk back into the thunderous applause he deserves. That is intended.
Super comfortable, you guys. Okay. Right over there.
Hello. My question is for Dawn. After seeing the movie, I feel like everybody has new tricks and toys, and I feel like maybe War Machine hasn't gotten the upgrade that he deserves. So I wonder if he has any animosity for
Thank God somebody finally made it bare.
Because Tony has a lot of new suits since we first saw him.
Yeah, I think we'll see. You know, it's not over unless it is, because I haven't seen the movie. Do I live? Let's do a few brisk. You'll see in the next one. Wait a minute. I think there are potentially more tricks up War Machine's sleeve. We'll see.
Over here.
Hey, it's Eric Eisberg from Zimmerblend. You guys have touched on it a little bit, but I think if you guys were to ask everybody in this audience what the most exciting sequence in this movie is, they would definitely say the airport sequence. I imagine it was one hell of a thing to put together, so I was just hoping you could talk a bit about just kind of the days that you were putting in production.
Well, I just think from my perspective, it's really interesting because it's not until we see usually the completed project that we know actually what all has gone on, you know. Often it's these disparate, you know, moments that we're trying to focus on, and you know, we'll see previs and we'll you know, the Russos will give us a good explanation of what's happening, but it's not until you see it all together that it's like, wow. Yeah, it's really an amazing technological feat that it all
So
works.
just for the record, there's an airport sequence in this movie.
That's exactly
Looking forward.
Excitingly named airport sequence.
Airport sequence.
Leipzig, in fact.
Was there any kind of, like, since this movie is about, you know, conflict, of course, like, was there anything off-screen, like any kind of fun rivalries or any kind of teasing that you guys have done? Because now you guys are a family off-screen as well, right?
No teasing.
Anything over there?
Maybe on the next panel.
A couple of meatheads on that panel.
Lots of like burpee competitions
Yeah.
and pull-up stuff. You know what I mean? Good stuff.
Just ask me about push-ups on the next panel and see what Howard will say.
In seriousness, look, the movies are hard to make. They're long because they're complicated movies. So you're together for a long time. Because of the very unique storytelling that's happening in the MCU, these actors, filmmakers get together over multiple films, over multiple years. So yeah, it's a very unique working experience. Joe and I always joke, you know, we worked in TV for years, but you know, we never got a show to run as long as our run at Marvel.
All right, now right there.
Yeah, question for Kevin. Black Panther does such an amazing job, and this movie has a great role to play, and Chadwick Boseman, I think, was phenomenal in his performance. So at what point did you decide that Black Panther was going to be an essential part of this story as you guys were developing the script? And then what stood out when you were going through the process of casting that made you know that Chadwick was the right guy for the role of T'Challa?
It was relatively early on in the development process of the movie that Joe and Anthony and our screenwriters, Chris and Steve, thought it would be very valuable to have somebody, sort of in the way that Anthony was talking about Spidey and Ant-Man, people that weren't quite as invested. We wanted somebody who perhaps was invested, but didn't have allegiances to any one side, who was essentially in it for very personal reasons himself. We knew we wanted to make a Black Panther movie at some point, but at that time we weren't sure exactly when that would be. But as these discussions were going on, and we thought, I think we're going to bring Black Panther into this movie. I'm not kidding when I say Chadwick was the only choice. You know, his performance at 42, his performance in Get On Up, how different those performances are. And my memory is we called him on the conference room speaker when we were developing the movie and got him while he was somewhere in Switzerland or something at a premiere for Get On Up. And he was in his car, either about to get out or just gotten back in. And we said, have you ever heard of Black Panther? And he went, yes, yes. Why are you asking me that? And we said, do you want to play the part? And he was very excited. And it happened very, very quickly.
Emily, I want to ask you really quickly, like, now that this is your second film, do you really feel like you've hit a stride?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think I was definitely slightly intimidated in the first one, in Winter Soldier. You know, just kind of getting used to it, I think that lent itself well for the character. She was sort of more in like a rookie stage, and it's great to see her come back in a little bit more of like a mature life. She's, you know, confident and
Is she still good with guns, girl?
still good with guns. But yeah, she's a great character to play. I'm having so much fun with her, and you know, she gets to take a little butt in this one, and you know, it's great fun.
I really want to know, I've never heard anybody speak to this, so excuse me if you've already spoken to it. Do you ever have an idea as to where your characters are going in the future? The Marvel Universe is so interconnected, and certainly there's a vision past what we're seeing on the screen at the time. Do you ever get clues as to play it this way, knowing that you're going to go here eventually at some point? Does that ever happen, or is it a secret from even you guys? Don't frown at me.
In all seriousness, I would say it varies. I would say the characters don't know what's supposed to be happening to them, so I don't know how helpful it would be. And sometimes there's a long play that I think Paul knew for quite a while. Visuals coming down the pipeline and had to keep it a secret for quite a while. Robert's very good at keeping secrets. We can tell him anything at all times. So it really does vary. There's some big picture things. I remember pitching sort of big twist of Winter Soldier to Chris Evans when we were shooting the final scenes in New York on the first Avengers film. So there are long things like that, and then there are shorter, can you come over right now moments.
It's exciting. Over there, please.
I'm Jeremy Shaw from Scott Stickers Festival. So this question's for Mr. Russo. What about the world today demands a popularity resurgence on superheroes?
Demands a popularity resurgence? Look, you know, you can answer that question, I think, in a lot of different ways, but, you know, we live in a very complicated world, and it seems like it gets more and more complicated every day, and I think there's lots of signs of that we're all experiencing and going through and struggling with. You know, there's something very reassuring about having a fantasy film that can deal with a lot of these issues, but in a way that's one step removed. You know, it's hard to deal with reality sometimes when it's in your face. You need a little buffer from it. You need to place it within a context where your imagination can roam and your emotions can flow in a way that's maybe not as complicated or threatening as in your real life. So I do think, especially with these Captain America movies, because I think there's a political dimension that's like inherent with the character because of his origin, his name, etc. I don't know, I think maybe it provides us a space to play in and explore that's a little safer in some ways than reality.
Incredibly smart answer. Yeah,
So that's an incredible compliment coming from this.
No, I just sound, is being British, I just sound smart. At school at 16, I have no idea what you're talking about. You presented it in a smart way.
It just sounded smart.
Yeah, it sounded smart.
Yeah, that's my Cleveland accent.
Right over there, please.
Hi, I'm James from Brazil. I want to ask for Robert. How does it feel like for Tony Stark to read all the reviews and fans' reactions saying the best thing in this movie is Spider-Man?
More importantly, if I wear these glasses for 30 more seconds, I get to keep them. This Holland kid couldn't hit his ass with both hands until I started working closely. Well, first of all, I haven't read that, so I feel like
You just wrote it.
I don't know how old you are, but I'm 51, and only sociopaths are still so self-centered in the extreme that they can't make space for other people. I think what I've learned slowly over time is that once you make some space for yourself, it's all about the other people that you're working with. And I think Tom did a great job. I couldn't be more excited than for Chadwick, and I love that you're not just a voice now. But I think that, well, first of all, you know what it's like. You have no idea what it's like. I'll tell you that. On the inside, casting one of these characters, Emily, it's a whole thing. I mean, lives are on the line, you would imagine. And it was such a big coup, and he's really demonstrated why he was the right guy for the job.
Robert was a big part of it. I think we've talked about this before, but
not enough for my taste.
We going back to the question about who knows what in the process. I called Robert relatively early, saying I think there's a chance we might get Spider-Man in this movie, and his reaction was actually one just like a fanboy, which was unbelievably excited for what that could mean for this movie. And then I was, a few weeks after that, said, hey, we've sort of culled it down to about 5 finalists. Could we bring them to Atlanta, and would you mind reading with all 5 of them? And he did, and then we culled it down a little bit more, and he did, and that was how Tom came to the top. Then Tom and one other person came back and read did more of a stunt test, in which Chris Evans was gracious enough to read opposite him. But it was fun seeing that Robert was invested, and to see Tom react to Robert, which is not dissimilar from the way Peter was reacting to Tony. It's actually quite cool.
I will add this. I mean, obviously the character has a very special relationship with Robert's character in the movie, and most of his work, the vast majority of his work, was with Robert. And it's just like Kevin said. Robert was incredibly generous in terms of going through the process.
Well, I didn't know all these reviews were going to
helping us all figure out who the right person was for the role. But not only that, once Tom got cast, to all of our delight, then working with Tom, a young performer, sort of bringing him into this very complicated fold with all these very sophisticated performers and pedigreed performers. I mean, I remember when he did the big bedroom scene with Tom. I remember Joe and I sitting at the monitors and just reflecting on the idea that, wow, the greatest gift that you can give an actor is to be in a scene with Robert Downey Jr. I mean, that is the bedroom scene. Honestly, he's a very talented performer, very improvisational performer, and he knows how to pull the best out of people who are working with him.
Great, let me give you a counterpoint to this. I want to say, because I didn't get to, and I've seen the movie, Rhodey and Tony have had this kind of ongoing arc, but then there's all this bad guy and all this stuff that has to happen. And what I really appreciate is, and I credit Kevin and the Russos for really making sure it happens this time, is you really get back to this baseline, ongoing, complicated friendship that they have, and it's obviously challenged to a different degree. And I remember when we were doing that kind of resolution scene at the end and all that stuff. And that was before I saw Miles Ahead and realized that not only did I already thought you were great, but now I realize you're probably the most talented person I've ever been working with in a long time.
Thank you.
I've never taken it for granted. I'm just happily surprised again.
Thank you, man.
All right. Well, forward.
Kevin, just moving forward, let's not.
I'll give this to the valet on the way out.
Hi. First of all, well done, everyone. This was challenging material, and I think everyone came through with flying colors. My question is for the 2 non-actors on the panel. These sorts of fights, these hero versus
You have to be very specific when you say that.
Mr. Russo and Mr. Feige.
Okay, you're right. I saw their street tests.
You have a lot of hero versus hero fights in this, not just Downey and Evans, but I mean, a lot. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process of pairing up those conflicts, and more importantly, how you integrated them with the story and turned it into more than just random slugfests.
It's a complicated question. Look, we thought about look at, my brother and I always say that we love action, we're action fetishists. But, you know, it's like for us, action always needs to be driven by a sense of character and a sense of story, beat by beat by beat, through the action sequence, or else you just lose interest. It has no value to the storytelling. So we looked for opportunities in the movie to play with these rich, complicated relationships. There's a very interesting relationship between Paul's character in this movie and Lizzie Olsen's character, Scarlet Witch and Vision. You know, that begins to develop an interesting, complicated relationship. And to put them on opposite sides, you know, in the battle was very exciting to us because it sort of interfered with what was happening, the dynamic between these characters, and watching them push that forward. I mean, what did that? Just to ask you, Paul, like, how did that sort of like inform your experience of it, having a personal relationship with a character while at the same time finding yourself on the opposite side of the fight?
I think it was a really, really interesting idea. You find Vision, this, you know, in Age of Ultron, he is just born and omnipotent yet naive, and then in this movie, you find him trying to figure out what humanity is and how you have loyalty, because logic doesn't afford loyalty. So I think he's really interested in working out what love is, you know, and there's this woman who has a similar problem that he's facing, which is he doesn't know the limits of his power, nor does she. And you know, of course, you know, love can make you feel loyal. And at the end of this movie, I think, you know, it's a double-edged sword, because you see this his response of finally having a human response is he makes a big mistake, which is interesting, and I thought it was a really deft piece of storytelling. So it was really fun to do, especially moving forward with him.
Well, that's what, you know, for us, that's the heart of any conflict in a movie, whether it be a dramatic conflict or an action conflict, or, you know, that's what you run at.
Alas, our time together is winding down, so.
This question's for Emily. I know your background with Revenge, and you were always kicking butt on there. And with this character, you just mentioned that you did have a little bit of a chance to kind of kick ass. But do you ever want to do more, since that is something that you're very familiar with and you did on Revenge? And
yeah, look, I love it. I love all the physical stuff, you know, and it's brilliantly done in these movies. But I also think, you know, it's great about these films too. Also, you know, developing these characters over time, and so that's one element. You know, it's great, but I also really enjoyed getting to really share Sharon with the audience as well, because we only knew her as Agent 13, and sort of explore that relationship with Steve. That was really interesting to me, because their relationship in the comic books was great and complicated and interesting, and you know, we're sort of just delving into that now, which is really fun. So I love all of that stuff, you know, all of it together. It's great. Right there.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for this movie. My name is Scott Menzel from We Live Entertainment. I actually have a two-part question. First for Kevin and Anthony. When you make a movie like this and you have so many characters, what's the biggest struggle with putting each character in there for screen time and knowing the right amount? And then for the actors, what do you think about each of your characters is the characteristic that draws audiences into those roles?
Well, I think so much of the credit for your first question, or the success with balancing those characters, goes to Chris Marcus and Steve McFeely, who really know that you talk about Spidey. Screen time doesn't equal, you know, it's quality, not quantity, right? If people have moments that land, if people have a laugh, if people have a cheer, that's sometimes all you need to say, this character's been serviced, let's move on to the bigger story. And Joe and Anthony are always so adamant, rightfully so, that the overall story is being serviced as opposed to every single character in the film. I think that's how you take this many characters and balance a singular, relatively simple story. and have them there in each of their moments where they earn a laugh or earn a tear or earn a cheer, serve the very specific story at hand.
Well, I watched the movie with a stopwatch to see.
No, I'll do it as
What is it that you think draws people to your characters, guys? Like, do you think there's a central characteristic?
Well, I know that Rhodey's always trying to, and in this movie too, he's always struggling with what does he owe as a serviceman and what is his duty and chain of command, and how must that be protected and honored. But also I'm in this team of people who, some of them are, have, as Paul was saying, no limit to their power, and where are the checks and balances, and that's something that's obviously central to this film as well. But I think that's an understandable sort of fence that he's on, and how do you friendship versus chain of command and all those things that I think Rhodey's trying to balance as he goes forward with this group of guys.
Do any of you have anything to add to that? I think it's a really interesting question as we wind up. Like, why do people just,
I just think that for vision, that synthetic people around the world can yearning to break free from the shackles. They really get behind my character. I think I speak for them.
Your TVQ in the mannequin world is unreal.
Honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
my coffee maker is your #1 fan. And I believe that this is our last question if we have anybody over here on the side.
Right here in the back.
Who has the mic back there?
Back here.
All right.
How you doing? Brandon Davis, comicbook.com. First of all, guys, thank you so much for an awesome movie. We really thank you. Questions, we were talking about Spider-Man a second ago. My question is, how exactly did Tony know about Spider-Man, and does how he know mean that he is aware of like the other New York heroes?
I've seen that.
Listen, just because you know more about stuff. You know what? As a matter of fact, I embrace you. You should find me. Tell me everything I don't know. I have an incomplete education. Which brings me back to this is why I've always continued to like to play Tony. Tony is a guy who's essentially, he's pretty broken and narcissistic, and over the course of all these movies, he's kind of waking up to that and realizing it, and just trying to heal and become a better person. Which I think you could say across the board for pretty much all the characters. With me being, I guess, the least informed version. Thank you for that startling bit of feedback.
In our minds, we were picking up Peter Parker's story at a point after which he's gotten his powers, but before which he's fully sort of come out. And so he had, in our storytelling, he has been doing some things in New York, and there's been these sort of Sasquatch-like videos of what he's been doing that's been showing up. You've heard word of mouth that something's happening, there's this very strange thing happening. So it's kind of something that's in the rumor mill, but nobody has been able to identify who exactly this is yet, or how it's happening, etc. But of course, Tony Stark, being who Tony Stark is, he's one step ahead of everybody else.
All right, guys, that does it for Team Iron Man.
Thank you.
So Paul Bettany, Robert Downey Jr., Don Cheadle.
Thank you very much.